Hello everyone, this video will cover Module 4. Module 4 is just a continuation of short stories. You're actually going to write your first short story in this module, and you're also going to start looking at some published work. So you'll see that some of the assignments are repeated through the semester and depending on the genre that we're looking at. So you're going to do a review discussion board now, and you'll also do another one when we get to poetry. So that's kind of what we start off with, is this fiction review discussion board. We have more readings and resources. They are similar to what you've done, but we don't have a quiz over them. So we're really just focusing on some specifics about writing. And so there's some sections in there that will help you with this first short story. Fiction review discussion board. So I think we have 2 of these this semester, and basically the idea behind them is we have one outcome that requires you to look at professional work and do some analysis of or critique of professional work. And so the first thing you're going to do is find a short story that's out there written by a professional author. I do want to caution you, when finding creative work online, you will find a lot of creative work online that is not professional. Like, there's some stuff out there that we would not consider a short story that is like a published professional short story. There is that, and they may be awesome short stories, but I want you to be looking for like published work, that kind of thing. There's some good examples in the textbooks. Introduction to Creative Writing book there's a whole each of the lessons, most of the lessons anyway, have short story examples. So like Miss Brill is an example. When you think about short stories that you read, The Necklace, another example, The Yellow Wallpaper, short stories that you read maybe in a literature class, those are the types of stories that we're looking for at this point. And so I want you to, later on we'll look at other types of published work, but now we're looking for professional. So you're going to do a couple of paragraphs about the story that you found. First, tell us author title and where to find it. So you can link a URL if you want to, or you can just tell us the page number out of which textbook you found it. And then just a couple of paragraphs that give us like an overview of the story, kind of what your opinion is. I'm thinking 1 paragraph summarizes and 1 paragraph critiques. That's typically what we'll do for a response. So you would want to give us like the overview, what happens, who the characters are, etc. And then in a critique paragraph, maybe talk about what your opinion was. Did you like it? What did you learn from reading it? What sort of techniques did you see being used? All of those kinds of things. Then you're going to respond to 2 students and kind of talk about whether you agree or disagree with their assessment. You want to actually access the story that they read, look over it, see what are some of the details maybe that they missed or didn't add, that kind of thing. So responses are going to be fairly basic, but they're just to include that conversation element. We need to have collaborative work in the class. So that is what you're going to start with. There is just looking at those different elements of fiction in published work. Then you're going to start working on your first short story assignment. So our first short story is a point of view story. And each short story will have like a page that just tells you the criteria of the assignment, which is different from the page where you submit it. So this is the assignment itself. And the explanation of what you're doing. So you're going to choose a popular story or tale that has already been written, and then you're going to write it from the bad guy character's perspective. So we're playing with point of view here, and your task is to justify the bad guy's actions. So you need to pick a story where there's a very clear like bad guy, good guy character, and then write the story from the villain's perspective. A lot of students will pick fairy tales, which is work really well for this assignment, because we're really trying to justify that bad guy character, and they're very clearly bad and good. And then explain the story from the point of view of the bad guy. You're making their actions seem reasonable. So you're telling the story beginning to end, but from the first person's perspective. So you're using I in the story, and that I is from the villain's perspective. So the villain is the one telling the story, and this is what they did. So that's just to get you started there. Depending on what you want to do, there's a lot of different options for story-wise, but it does need to be one that's fairly recognizable. Occasionally I'll have a student who has a story where I have no idea where they're getting it from. It's not very clear. So you want to be telling it from that bad guy perspective, and it's going to be fairly short since you're telling us an existing story already. But we do want to have a beginning, middle, and ending. The ending can be a little bit of a challenge because some of your stories, the bad guy dies. So it's hard to write from a perspective of a character who's dead at the end. So some students will just kind of end it like, right before the witch goes up the mountain before she gets struck by lightning or something like that. So it's, it doesn't quite get to, and then some of them will kind of, give the last thoughts of the character as they're dying or something like that. And that's fine too. So I get some ideas here for you, and then there's some other information in the module, things about plot, which is kind of how to plot out a story, which is very useful. All of your creative work, you need to be saving like multiple drafts of it, making sure that you're showing us the progress of your writing. You'll turn in a final draft version, and then this is where you actually turn it in at. So this is just, some reminders of the format. But keep in mind that because of the use of AI is so bad, you can use any type of generator that just checks grammar. Grammarly is fine. However, do not use any AI program that goes beyond checking for misspelled words, checking for misused words, checking for misused punctuation, just kind of that basic stuff. Don't go beyond that. And the reason is because once you start accepting changes that change your wording, then your wording will start to sound computer generated or robotic. And so we want to make sure that we're maintaining your authentic voice. And so if you do have Grammarly on your computer, just don't accept those changes that it's suggesting unless it's an actual error. Then you can do that. Some students don't though, and using like your word processing, like if you're using Microsoft Word and it's got spell check, that's totally fine. That's not AI. But anything else beyond that really is use of AI. So you want to make sure that you are being very cognizant of how you use it. With all assignments, I recommend, start this at the beginning of the week. Get a really, really rough draft version of your story written down, and then copy and paste it into a new file and create, draft 2 of your point of view story. And then maybe do that again, and you have draft 3 or final draft of your short story. And so you're showing your progress as a writer, but then you also have proof that you actually wrote something. And that's something to just, you're going to have to do this at some point in the future, and I can't stress that enough. Eventually, you're going to have to be able to prove your humanity. So make sure that you are saving your work in stages as separate files to prove that it's yours. And you'll see that the rubric as well has an AI level. I've added that this semester. And so if your description is vague or broad or not authentic, then you're going to score at that level, which is about half credit for that particular criteria. And if your whole essay is AI, then you're getting half credit for the entire story. So just keep that in mind. You want to make sure that you are writing authentically. And if you have questions as you write the story, it's not cheating to send me a draft before you have to turn it in. So make sure that you're just considering that. If you get it done with enough time, you can always send it to me, or you can use like the online writing lab to get feedback from your peers, something like that, to help you out with editing, making sure everything makes sense, that kind of thing. If you have questions, send me an email. Otherwise, have a great week.